my breath fogged up the glass. And so I drew a new face and I laughed. I guess what I'll be saying is there ain't no better reason to rid yourself of vanities and just go with the seasons. It's what we aim to do. Our name is our virtue, but I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm yours. Well, open up your mind and see like me. Open up your plans and damn, you're free. I look into your heart and you'll find that the sky is yours. So please don't, please don't, please don't. There's no need to complicate, 'cause our time is short. This is our fate. I'm yours. Beautiful girls all over the world I could be chasing, but my time would be wasted. They got nothing on you, babe.
Hello, everyone. This is the Region Republican Show here on WJOB in Northwest Indiana. This program is paid for by the Lake County Republican Party. I am your host, Bob Starkey, and I'd like to thank my guest today, Randy Niemeyer. We'll get to him in a second, and he's got all sorts of interesting things we're going to talk about. This is recorded and broadcast live on Monday, August 25th. Afterwards, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. We're streaming on WJOB1230.com. If you're on the Facebooks, you can just search Region Republicans, like us there, and you'll see all sorts of advertisements for upcoming shows. Again, this is Region Republicans, paid for by the Lake County Republican Party. Our chairman, Randy Niemeyer, who's with me today, Vice Chairman Leanne Ingerman, Secretary Steve Eichner, Treasurer Chris Salatis. We've got a crack team. I am your host, Bob Starkey. And notice I said we had a crack team before I mentioned my name. I think they ran out of folks and said, "Hey Bob, can you do this?" So I'm happy to do this here. And you are watching, listening, and vibing here on the Region Republican Show. I want to take care of a few housekeeping items. Coming up, we have the Labor Day Parade down in Lowell, Indiana. I want folks to check out LakeCountyRepublicanParty.com. That's going to be your source for all sorts of information. They've got an events tab, a calendar where you can find information. But this parade, I know we're doing a push for this. I've got Randy here. Jessica's out in the wings. She's, I don't know, waving or something. Everybody, this is a huge effort. I think last year we had about 150 walkers, if I'm not mistaken. We want as many folks as we can to get out there. This is going to be a great kickoff to 2026. And so I want to encourage all of our Lake County Republican Party, all the individual towns, their chairmen, their precinct organizations to come on out. This is going to be, again, in Lowell on Monday, September 1st at 10 a.m., right on Route 2. Check out Lake County Republican Party on Facebook for more information. I think we're kicking off somewhere by the high school. I could be wrong. I'm getting a thumbs up on that. But we are hoping just to see a massive turnout. So hopefully as you're coming down to walk with us, you'll be able to see a large group. One last thing, we do have a couple fundraisers coming up on September 13th. Dave Crane and Preston Ruby have one. On the 14th, Coffee and Chocolate with Mid-Lake Republican Women. September 21st is a Crown Point GOP Game Day. and September 22nd is, thank you very much for that coffee, is Oktoberfest. That's one of House Lager's annual fundraisers. That's always a good time there. Cedar Lake Hanover Township is having their first annual golf outing. Again, all of this information you can find at LakeCountyRepublicanParty.com and check them out. But because my very special guest, a good friend of mine, has a hard stop this afternoon because he is in the middle of a truck run, and so we want to get all the information we can from him before he's got to get back out there, is my friend Randy Niemeyer, Lake County GOP chairman, Lake County councilman. You've got a whole list of formers and currents, and so we don't even need to go into that. I wanted to bring you on specifically because and I want to get right into it, so we're not going to do a whole lot of fluff. There is a huge push right now in the country for redistricting midterm. And I'm just going to ask you right off the bat, what are your thoughts on redistricting midterm? What does that mean for Hoosiers in Indiana? What does that mean for Texans, folks in California? What is going on with redistricting?
Yeah, obviously this is President Trump has an invitation to anybody from the Indiana legislature to come out and see him in the White House this week to talk about that. But so I think there's a couple of things here that are important. As a matter of policy, I don't know if mid-decade redistricting is preferable. But there are, like any policies, anything that we do, there are circumstances that arise that create necessity, mitigating circumstances, accelerating circumstances. And in this case, we have those present. It was reported by the Census Bureau that in 2020, there was a miscount of 14 states. On their post-enumeration survey, the Census Bureau actually reported that, self-reported that. There is so
the Census Bureau has already said, hey, we flubbed the numbers on this. Yep. It's not exactly what you think it was. People aren't exactly where we thought they were, and in the numbers that we had said.
Right. So then there's an online thing called the American Redistricting Project. So in doing some research on this, because I always want to know the why. Why are we looking at this right now? You see that
because on the face of it, it does appear to be political, which is odd to say. One thing when I got elected was I had someone tell me, look, now that you're elected, everything you're doing is bipartisan. You're doing this for the people, but one of the political responsibilities you have is when it comes to redistricting. I happen to be elected in a time where the census came out, and we could do that. And so, is this a correction to bad numbers? Is this politicking? Is this a little both?
So overall, the Republicans would have had 5 more seats had the 2020 census been done correctly.
Okay.
Why that's important is you do have to look at the political of this because this is a political process, whether we like it or not. The Democrats have been utilizing mechanisms within the census and within immigration for many, many years to dilute the votes of the American voters. So why I bring this up is if you look at a report by the again, I like to make sure I've got my references here.
This is not the first time I've had you on the show, and you always have your receipts.
Yeah, I don't like to just throw this stuff out into the ether. But a report by the Center for Immigration Studies called Tilting the Balance, a 2019 report showed that the illegal immigration up to that point, or non-citizen weight of apportionment, was about 26 seats as of 2019.
Okay.
Now, we all know what happened between 2021 and 2024, where we had anywhere between 12 and 20 million people that came in through the Biden administration's terrible immigration policies.
There was an immigration policy. Maybe I'm being tongue-in-cheek.
Their policy was
open the door and let them in.
Open it, let them in, no matter who it is. And the Maryland father Garcia is now in ICE custody as of today, which is good.
Okay.
Human trafficker, he belongs in ICE custody. But going back to this, if you look at the weight of 12 to 20 million, plus the 5 seats that were possibly miscounted in the 2020 census by the Census Bureau's own reporting, it could have a weight of anywhere between 47 and 57 total seats from the 2010, 2020, and 2030 censuses. The Democrats have been playing a political game with the census and with immigration for decades. So all this virtue signaling is driving me insane because they have been playing a power game. If you think about 47 seats in the House and 47 electoral votes being reapportioned based on illegal immigrant numbers, that dilutes the vote of the entire country, not just the first district, but the whole country.
Well, and there was I don't watch any of the late night shows. My favorite was Craig Ferguson, and now that he's off, I don't pay attention to any of them. But I had seen a clip. I don't know if it was one of the TikToks or something, and one of these late night guys had J.B. Pritzker on, who was just, old man shaking his fist at the sky about, some possible redistricting, and they just held up a picture of Illinois. And but this is not the first time that, Democrats do their own thing, and the minute the Republicans say, well, we're going to do that, no, you're supposed to be the moral party, you only do it every 10 years, you follow the rules, but meanwhile, we are going to district ours to cut out individual homes in Illinois. So it's a big virtue signal for them to claim some moral high ground.
And the fact that they're using our systems of counting people as a way to create a permanent power base and dilute the votes of the Americans. If you have an impact of illegal immigration on the census count, for those that don't know, basically every head is counted. If you have that impact, and there has been an attempt at legislation in the last 2 Congresses, Congressman Chuck Edwards from North Carolina has authored the Equal Representation Act, which Frank Mervan voted against. Right?
Shocker.
Which I'm not shocked, because this is the political play by the Democrats to utilize the weight of their processes to dilute the votes so that the Democrats have permanent power. Anybody that says anything else is fooling themselves. They're buying into a bunch of nonsense. This is a political process. While the Republicans' approach to the redistricting is political, but the Democrats' approach to counting people and immigration is political as well, and it's not about humanitarian. It's about power, period. The congresswoman from Brooklyn, can't remember her name right offhand, she said the quiet part out loud. I need those people counted in my district for apportionment.
Every once in a while, and some of the best clips online is every once in a while when they say the quiet part out loud, and oftentimes when these Democrats get up there and they have their sound bites, listen to them when they oftentimes will do what they are saying. And one thing that I've seen on I'll say at our side, which I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second, that was worrisome is, and I forget which one of the elected folks put out there, but they said we need to do this out of fairness, and then they listed out all of these states where there is a huge discrepancy between the amount of Republican voters in the state versus the amount of congressmen that are. So if you've got a state, and I could be wrong on the numbers here, I don't have it in front of me, but if you've got a state like Wisconsin who, let's say 45% of the people vote Republican, but only 12% of their congressmen are Republican, then there's some type of discrepancy there. And I agree that just go into ChatGPT or any of those and ask it, and it will give you a list. And some of them are wildly off. But where I get a little nervous with when they say, well, we need to divide this up amongst fairness. If you look at Indiana, if you're just looking at those fair numbers, there should be 1 or 2 more Democrat seats if you're only looking at fairness. But you can't do that because you're not looking at communities of like interest. You're not looking at that point, you're just redistributing a mass of votes, and that doesn't work either.
Well, but if you look at the maps of the first district over the last 40 years. So
Right.
1980, 90, 2000, 2010, 2020. The first district has taken on multiple personalities. This is not about areas of like interest. The first district, when I first started voting, ran down the west side of the state, all the way to Benton County.
Yes, much further south.
When I was a young kid, it was only along the lakeshore, and it was actually a little breakup and went over into St. Joseph County. So don't give me this garbage about that the first district was cut out like it is now.
Just for
that's a bunch of nonsense.
Right, and it was almost just pinned into a small little area. That is that District 1, or do you go back, like you said, and look at the maps?
Yeah.
I remember when I first got into politics, District 1 went much further south. I mean, it's as if folks forgot that there's more past the Kankakee.
Well, and that's the fallacy of this thing is like people only remember what happened yesterday. But if you look at the maps here, this is the 1980s. It's right along the lakeshore, right? You look at these maps, the old District 5 used to pick up the south part of Lake County.
South part of Lake County.
Yeah, and so I had an entirely different member of Congress representing me, and that district went all the way over into east central Indiana.
I mean, you are a stone's throw away from Ohio at that point.
Yeah.
And so here's my question now. As you have multiple hats. You are the Lake County chairman. You are a county councilman. You're a former candidate for this congressional seat. What does the process moving forward look like? Wearing all those hats, what does the process look like to redistrict in Indiana? Well, is this something? Is this a foregone conclusion? Do we need to call a special session? When are we going to know for sure that we're redistricting and here's your new lines?
Yeah, a special session would have to be called. I think that the party right now, Republican Party, is pretty lukewarm on it, which I understand. You should have misgivings about a break of traditional policy. You should look at this stuff very carefully. But I think when you dive into the data, you see that it's actually necessary because after 2030, the Democrats get control of the House, the Senate, the presidency. They will do exactly what they've told us they would do. They will pack the courts. The Democrats, one thing I know about them is they keep their word.
Yeah.
They'll pack the courts. Puerto Rico and D.C. will become states. You'll have 4 more Democrat senators. They'll make all the illegal immigrants voters. These are all things they've told us they would do, and they'll do it. I believe it. So it's important right now for Republicans to look at every mechanism available to make sure that the dilution of the vote that's happened through illegal immigration stops. And again, it's been tried to be legislated. The SAVE Act was also one that would require citizenship proof to vote. Well, Frank Mervan voted against that too. Right? Not a big surprise that every Democrat is against any law that makes sense when it comes to the integrity of the system of self-government that we enjoy. So the redistricting process, though, is a very difficult process. David Shelton, who's a candidate for Secretary of State, talks about this, and he and I talked about it recently. November 1st is that date where the county clerks have to have everybody in their new district, the new lines drawn, and that is not an easy administrative process. That's every county clerk, everybody's got to have the same information and be doing the same work. And last time that was done in 2020, that process took almost 3 months to get done. So the legislature would have to be called into session right away. They would have to get through this quickly to even have a shot at hitting that November 1st deadline.
Now, and so this here, you know more about the process than I do. So these county clerks are the ones who are putting. Is there a possibility that the state legislature, they call a special session, they do things, but now you've got some of these blue counties of which maybe there is, 5 or 6 out of the 92 counties. Is there the possibility that they drag their feet and don't hit deadlines? And so then we can't move forward with these new congressional districts.
I'd like to say no, but knowing local elected officials like I do sometimes.
I was just going to say, if there's a possibility to drag on this, because it not only would fundamentally change Indiana, but then it is a spoke in the wheel to change the federal government.
Yeah, and really we are changing the balance of power in this country through illegal practices right now by the Democrat Party. Joe Biden opened the border, flooded this country, not for humanitarian purposes. This was purely about tilting the balance of power. So let's stop the conversation that this is something about some sort of political process. The political process has been at play for decades, and we're starting to see the results of that, where 1 in 10 of the members of the House will be diluted by a count of people who don't even have a vote in our system.
Well,
it's crazy.
It's really hard to, as you're scrolling and you see, just doom scrolling on social media and seeing folks talk out about this. These are the last people that I want to hear any moral high ground voting lectures on. Again, if you're against producing identification to say, I am Bob Starkey, this is my vote. If you're against that, and it's just anyone in these studios here can just show up and vote and claim to be Bob Starkey, or it doesn't even matter, just a check on a box somewhere, that is not right. That's not fair. And it's not fair to the entire process, to the institution.
You only have to look at a map of this last election to realize that the only places that Democrats had massive success were places that, one, either had no photo ID requirement or just a voter registration card requirement, right? Places that didn't have general identification standards, massive mail-in ballots. And what I mean by mail-in ballots is that they're ballots that are sent to people even without them asking, and then folks coming along and harvesting them, putting them in drop boxes. There are terrible systems in some of these liberal areas that allow for us to question the process. But getting to redistricting, the Republicans have got to have some courage. My party is not known for its ability to stand up when called, because we always want to be the nice guys.
Right.
And the Democrats have been playing a zero-sum game with us for decades, and we've been letting it happen. And they know that we're just going to sit back and let it happen, so they keep doing it methodically. They play that 9-inning game, and I'm happy to see that this is being talked about, and it's front and center in people's minds, and we've got to look at all the information.
We've got just a couple minutes left with you here before you've got to get out there and do your thing. And I want to pivot here for a second.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time that you and I have talked since the Lake County Fair. I want to speak about bringing something front and center. And you may be tired of hearing about this now or talking about this, because I know it was in several news articles. Everybody been talking about it. But that wall of shame that the team put up at the county fair, we've heard these stories for such a long time that I think it was Indictment Fridays folks were waiting on, but to see them all on a board, to see it in front of you, and to see that history was the response was something else. To hear all of that, what was your thought behind that? And now that it's been done and out there, how have people been treating that with the party?
Within our party, it's been the feedback's been great, right? And most of the feedback at the booth and conversations was very good feedback. People were curious. Well, I didn't know this, right? There's a lot of new voters to the area. It's important that we educate them.
Yeah.
And so that's what we were doing. I did have one lady come up to the booth and said, "Mr. Niemeyer, you should be ashamed of yourself." And I said, I am kind of ashamed. I said, this is a pretty spectacular display, but we only had room for about half of them. So that's even more shameful that we could only put up half with the room that we had. So the important thing is that the message is pay attention, right? Let's let's stop. Well, they got a D next to their name, and Democrat means that they're for the little guy, which is complete nonsense. The Democrats become a party of the elites, and that the Republicans hate all the people with different skin colors. Again, complete nonsense. And I think that's been proven over time. And they just vote for the same party because that's what they've been trained to do. But the creation of this machine in Lake County has perpetuated this criminal behavior, and it continues even up to last year, where Kim Robinson had to resign her seat because of a felony.
Right, and
it's crazy
to see all that there. What a great conversation starter, especially for those new folks that are coming into town, to say, look at the history of what we have here. And, you could argue that, well, it's all Democrats up there because that's all that was ever elected, which I still find is a felonious argument. I mean, you can't, or they'll say, oh, well, you guys got your folks. We literally have a massive wall that doesn't hold all of the pictures. And we're not talking about, folks who do things. We're talking about the loss of public trust that these elected officials have taken. That you're elected, you take an oath, you now have the public trust, and they've squandered it for their own personal reasons. And that's the machine here in Lake County.
And I have people say, well, why aren't there any Republicans on there? I said, well, first of all, I don't know of any Republicans in Lake County that have been arrested on federal charges or convicted. Secondly, it's a Republican booth. And third is, yes, the idea of corruption doesn't belong to one party. Go around the country. There's plenty of balance and stupidity.
There's no monopoly on stupid.
But here in Lake County, the Democrats have had a monopoly on that for a long time. Right. And it's important for us as a party to use our platforms to educate people, to make sure that they at least open their eyes and say, I'm going to take a look at some of these Republican candidates, because we don't want to keep telling the Democrats it's okay to do this. My suspicion is if Kim Robinson could run again in Cal Township, she'd get elected.
She would get elected. I forget who it was, but if I'm not mistaken, I could be East Chicago perhaps, there was someone who was elected while sitting in jail for some
coup battle. And he was ended up being convicted of murder and drug trafficking.
And
he got elected.
He was elected because there's that muscle memory of just go, hit D, and leave.
It's insane, Bob. That in a nutshell was we wanted to. We're not going to play defense here. We're going to play offense. And
no, that was a great way to spark the conversation. Yeah. I know you've got to get out of here. You're on the clock.
I got to do some trucking here.
Yeah. My name is Bob Starkey, and I'm the host of Region Republicans, paid for by the Lake County Republican Party. My guest today was Randy Niemeyer. Some future news here in September. We are going to have two shows. The last show in July was canceled due to some storm and technical issues. So we're going to have a double header here in September. Go on to Facebook, look up Region Republicans, like and share that page, and you'll see who we've got coming on up here in September. So Randy, thanks a lot for coming in.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it.
That will be it for us today. Everyone have a good one.